Okay. So there's nothing much different now. You almost the basic ventilation theory. You almost know what to do. Now we'll just talk a few, go through few things in obesity and patients with neuromuscular disorder, how to ventilate them. So start with what are the problems with the obesity. What problems you can expect with the obese patient? Say for example BMI of more than 40. So this is just a theory for 5 minutes. Just come on quickly. There's nothing to do a workshop. You all are sleepy, I think. Okay. So I'll just talk 2 sentences. That's all. I mean, I'm I'm not going to bore you guys. Yes, very good. It adds to the restriction because of no, we'll come to that. But this point, okay, diaphragm in a lying position, the diaphragm goes down, so lung compliance goes down. Okay, it causes resistance to the airway because of no. That will come to that. Chest wall compliance, isn't it? There is something called lung compliance and there is something called chest wall compliance, isn't it? So you understand what you mean by compliance, right? Now in obesity, what happens is the chest wall compliance gets added on to the lung. Lung compliance is not a problem. In a normal obese patient, lung compliance is not a problem, right? The chest wall compliance is a problem, right? So that's why restriction. Now if you go the problems, enumerate the problems by say airway. So start from the top. What are problems on the you can face in the airway in obese patient? Short neck, very good. Fat, fat collection, hypertrophic tongue or large tongue. Sleep apnea, right? What are the problems you get during intubation of such patient? High arch palate. What are the problem you encounter in obese patient? With short neck. What? Neck extension, okay. What else? What happens to your score? So Mallampati score will be 3 or 4, right? You would get that, definitely you will get with a short neck, with a obese, with a lot of fat pad. So it starts there. Upper airway obstruction, someone said, you will encounter that upper airway obstruction, especially if you want to give NIV, right? Then what? Come down. So upper airway obstruction, short trachea, short neck. Then what? In the lungs, we discuss about chest compliance. Then abdomen, pressing on the diaphragm, right? So these are the problems in obese patient. How will you ventilate? How will you overcome all these problems? So you in your hospital, a patient comes with 170 kilos. It's not nowadays. It is very common, huh? I'll tell you. That's why this bariatric surgery branch is just booming up, right? How will you overcome? Just enumerate these problems and see how you can overcome. So ventilate with. So start with NIV. What will you do with NIV? High PEEP, isn't it? So high PEEP, you will keep high PEEP on NIV, which will recruit your lower both the bases, the lower lobes. What else? Positioning of the patient. See to it that your diaphragm is not causing stress on the diaphragm, the abdomen. Where can you encounter these obese patients? Where do you want to? So, in an obese patient, where is it important to take care of the ventilation? Very good. Post-op patients. So you encountered the problem, isn't it? Typically, it is always a problem. Always, it's so difficult to extubate this patient when simple surgery. You are when the patient comes back from surgery and you are ready to extubate the patient, and then you say, "Oh, oxygen is dropping. Now what?" obesity hypoventilation syndrome, let's extubate and put him on CPAP. That's a common mistake people do. No, don't do that. First recruit the lung, recruit your bases. First give high PEEP, recruit the lung, expand the lung, see the X-ray, see to it that the diaphragms are well visible on the X-ray. It should not happen that the diaphragms are not visible. The diaphragms are not visible, that means you have got atelectasis of both the lower lobes. So recruit the lung, improve the lung, give positioning, then you can easily extubate within 12 to 24 hours. Once you recruit the lung and once the diaphragms are well seen, post-op patients. So that is what I want to tell you about the obesity. Always ventilate the obese patient with a high PEEP. Tidal volume, how will you decide about the tidal volume? Ideal body weight. Finish. So ideal body weight, decide the tidal. You don't need a humongous tidal volume in obese patient depending on the weight. You know, don't give tidal volume of 1000 when you know that's not practical. So ideal body weight, decide the tidal volume on ideal body weight, but give high PEEP. How would you decide the PEEP? That's the last question. I promise. Next we'll go to neuromuscular. How will you decide the PEEP? The people working in Raheja might know. No one working in Raheja here? You be quiet. How will you decide how much PEEP to give? No. How do you normally decide about PEEP?
Basically the lung expansion and the oxygen. We have not been waiting.
And then what do you monitor? No. What do you on the ventilator?
On the ventilator, generally what we do.
When you give high PEEP, what are you worried about?
When we see the peak pressure.
Correct. And
if the peak pressure increases by more than, generally we in our center go with the decremental PEEP setup.
okay, but what do you see? What do you monitor? Is it the peak pressure or the plateau pressure?
The plateau pressure that we monitor, but since it's not possible to monitor the plateau pressure every time,
Yeah.
what we generally crudely do is decrease the peak by 2 and look at the
Peak pressure, but you don't.
pressure drops by more than 2.
But you should have inspiratory hold on your.
We do have,
Huh.
but many a times the patient is not.
Is not, yeah.
So we
Yeah.
generally use this crude method if the peak pressure.
Peak
drops
pressure,
by
yeah,
more
you can
than
do that.
3.
Yeah.
That means that peak is the ideal peak that we
For
want
the patient, yeah, I agree. So peak pressure also you can go, but the ideal way is to go by plateau pressure. Now it is difficult for, this ventilator gives the plateau pressure. It is difficult for all the ventilators to have the plateau pressure. If it is available, great. If not, obviously one important thing in obese patient different is the transpulmonary pressure. Okay, that is different and that decides your PEEP. So if you measure the transpulmonary pressure, you will come to know how much PEEP to give, and that is what is the difference. So ideally in obese patient, better to measure the transpulmonary pressure. I think Sanjeev measures transpulmonary pressure in Raheja almost all patients. So ideally measure the transpulmonary pressure, esophageal probe, measure the transpulmonary pressure and then decide about your PEEP. It is very simple, and within 12 hours, whatever is the problem, within 12 hours your patient will come out of the ventilator. If it's difficult to get them out of the ventilator, obese patient. So high PEEP, normal tidal volume according to the ideal body weight, and that's a simple thing you need to decide, you need to remember about the obese patient. So let's talk something about neuromuscular weakness. Patients coming with you GBS, GBS, myasthenia gravis.
How do you judge your PEEP based on your plateau pressure? What is the parameters?
No, you maintain the plot. No. So you adjust the PEEP. So if you increase the PEEP to say suppose 12 and plateau pressure goes above 30, obviously you need to come down on the PEEP. So you adjust the PEEP basically accordingly. So yeah, neuromuscular weakness. So let's go to the same thing. What are the problems in neuromuscular weakness, and then try to solve the problems. So
Compliance is reduced of the chest.
okay, again the same thing. Compliance of the chest is reduced. Compliance of the lung is a problem? No.
Respiratory drive decreases.
Respiratory drive?
Decreases.
Drive decreases, or is it because of the muscle weakness? Muscle weakness. Drive doesn't decrease, isn't it? So let's start from the airway again. Come on here. Come on, you people are just quiet. Some of you are just quiet. It is simple, you know. I mean, everyone knows what is happening. Correct, right? You get in myasthenia patient, especially myasthenia patient, maybe not GBS, you get tongue weakness, you get facial weakness, you get bulbar weakness, the risk of aspiration is high, you get ptosis, all the muscles are weak. Sometimes they can't even maintain the airway. You get, if you see myasthenia gravis patient and they are talking, what do you look for in their phonation?
After some time it starts stammering.
There is
No.
hardness in the voice.
No. Typical thing. Nasal twang. Very good. Nasal twang. So typical, you see a nasal twang. The moment you start seeing the, obviously daily you communicate with the patient, right? If you have a nasal twang to the tone, you start thinking, my God, we are worried, right? What do you monitor in myasthenia gravis patient? Okay, single breath count, but a little more evidence base. PFT, too much, na? PFT.
Holding time.
No.
How far?
Vital capacity, na? Vital capacity. Your ventilation is based on your vital capacity. So don't you monitor the vital capacity? If you have a myasthenia gravis patient in your ICU, one thing you must monitor apart from the single breath count, the eye holding, you looking up, all that, hand holding, all that. Important thing, lot of evidence base is vital capacity. Monitor the vital capacity, and that determines whether you put the patient on ventilator or not. And of course, second thing is blood gases, carbon dioxide. Okay, two evidence base, rest all is okay. So what should be the vital capacity? When will you decide that it's time to ventilate now? We can't wait. And the neurologist will say, oh no, I will increase this pyridostigmine, this, that, I will give steroid, just wait, I will give IVIG today, just wait. Don't intubate. When will you decide? It's time to put on ventilator or start NIV. And that's the next question. What would you do? NIV or ventilator, and when? No, on vital capacity. So, you know, no. So, vital capacity less than 30 ml per kg, you start thinking in terms of, yes, now we need to start thinking about ventilator. Below 20 may or may not be, start NIV, maybe. Below 20, maybe start NIV. NIV, what were the problems? Again, your tongue is weak, bulbar weakness, your airway is not secured. These are the basic problems you will face when you give NIV to a neuromuscular patients with neuromuscular weakness, or specifically myasthenia gravis, because GBS may or may not involve your bulbar weakness and so on. The risk of aspiration always increases. So start thinking about NIV, bearing the bulbar weakness. Okay, if there is no bulbar weakness, start thinking of NIV. If the patient is still not retaining CO2, still there is no bulbar weakness, but vital capacity is less than 20, fine, you are fine with NIV. But as soon as the vital capacity goes below 15 ml per kg, you should ventilate. There is no doubt about that. Now, on the other hand, even if your vital capacity is less than 30 and you have hypercarbia, patient is retaining CO2, go ahead with invasive ventilator. Nothing more. So how will you ventilate? Simple, normal ventilation. I don't think there is anything different in it is just about the airway. And the second thing is weaning. Weaning, obviously you will see the regular parameters while weaning, your hemodynamic stability, your saturation, your respiratory rate, and your blood gases. Okay, I think we'll end there. Any questions for both of us? Just 2 minutes.
Just a small point to add on for neuromuscular disease, please don't paralyze these patients.
Yeah, obviously apart from all the other
That is
things
a
which
common
is
mistake.
very important. And very important to see which drugs you are giving the patient. Which antibiotic should be avoided?
Polymyxins.
Aminoglycoside, polymyxin. Even quinolones, some of the quinolones also. There is a list, whole list. Not the topic for today, but any questions?
If decided to use NIV, then the IPAP and EPAP setting should be or would be. Yes, anybody?
IPAP could be on the basis of EDQOT and EPAP on SpO2 and patient tolerance.
Correct. So B should be the answer. As I told you, EPAP actually improves the oxygenation, while IPAP reduces work of breathing and increases the. This is we are in NIV. Remember. EPAP improves work of breathing and your minute ventilation. IPAP, sorry. So if IPAP is 12 and EPAP is 4, then effective pressure is yes 12, because here it is not minus or anything. This is BiPAP. Increasing IPAP beyond what is required would cause following problem. Yes, the answer is gastric over distension and aspiration. That should be the choice actually. So basically, what will happen if you increase IPAP? Your tidal minute ventilation is increasing, but your airway resistance is high. So what will happen? The air will try to go through a easy passage of esophagus into the, instead of going into lung which is blocked, it will go into esophagus and stomach. So it will cause gastric over distension and risk of aspiration. So we decide to intubate this patient now and ventilate a tidal volume of 500. Definitely I will not use this kind of setting in this patient, but anyway they have given 500 and a respirator rate of 16. So what is happening? He is obviously developed autopeep, because this is a detrimental kind of ventilatory settings. So the best maneuver now somebody has put it on this ventilator, now you are the expert. So what will you do? अरे यार इतना तो अभी समझाया. Respiratory rate cannot be high at all. So how will you maintain the I ratio? You cannot have high respiratory rate. No, the answer is add PEEP to offset the auto PEEP. That is our main aim. That means you were sleeping during the session. During this ventilation, the bronchodilator treatment could be guided by. This question obviously I have not answered. Plateau pressure won't change because bronchodilator cause it reduces airway resistance actually. Okay, so your peak plateau difference will reduce. Plateau pressure will not reduce with bronchodilator. So the actual answer is flow scalars. So have you finished this session? Yeah. So on that you get lot of changes. Flow changes. You can see the auto PEEP. It doesn't reach the baseline. With bronchodilator, it will reach the baseline. That flow, right? Expiratory flow. So that you will see, and that is how you will guide your bronchodilator therapy, because that is real time. Every breath you are getting it. 28-year-old male, known case of myasthenia, present with type 2 respiratory failure. You are a doctor, intubated the patient and ventilated him. What is wrong? What is wrong in the options? Yes. Answer is D. Weaning criteria for patient with neuromuscular weakness. He is already explained. Yes, all of the above. In the obese patient, mechanically ventilated patient, starting tidal volume could be guided as per. No, height is different. Adjusted body weight. Yeah, so it is based on height only, but what we are the guided tidal volume is dependent on the ideal body weight or adjusted body weight. Optimization of setting in obesity could be guided by all except. Yes, one low PEEP and low tidal volume. So here you need high PEEP basically. Okay, so you are clear? Any doubts after all this?